Hi everybody, welcome back to Richard in the Kitchen. Tonight I'm making up some bacon wrapped meatloaf. It is so easy to do and so delicious and moist. So come along with me, let me show you how I do it. First thing I've done, I've got my oven preheating at 350. And while that's doing that, I've got a skillet that's set on medium low. Hit it with a little olive oil. I've chopped up a Vidalia yellow sweet onion, and we're going to throw those in there. Also going to put some garlic in there. I don't want to cook these onions. I don't even want them to turn brown. I just want to soften them up enough to where they don't have that onion bite when you take into a bite of the meatloaf. I'm also going to put some garlic in there in just a second once the onions are almost ready, because I don't want to burn the garlic. Garlic burns really easy. I'm going to hit the onions with a little salt because that helps them sweat a little bit better. Go ahead and throw my garlic in the onion mix, and I'm just going to let that simmer a little bit and let that garlic and flavor get on those onions and let the onions continue to soften up. Okay, what else you're going to need for this is you're going to need a roll. I use a roll. You can use breadcrumbs, you can use crackers. My dad used to do crackers, but you know, I like to do breadcrumbs. This is what makes that meatloaf really moist, because a lot of meatloaf can come out too dry if you're not careful. So what we'll do is we'll peel some of this bread up, and I'll show you what to do once I get that done. We're just going to add a little milk to this, set them aside, and let them soften up. Go ahead and add your milk, and just give that a good mix. Make sure all of your bread is soaked in this milk. Just kind of press it down, and what we'll do is we'll set that aside and we'll check on our onions. Okay, our bread and milk mixture has been sitting for about 5, 6, 7 minutes. Our onions sweated about the same amount of time, and what I've done is I've added to the bread and milk mixture some chopped up Italian flat parsley, about a 1/4 cup of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, and of course the onion mixture with the garlic. And once you get this mixed up, just take a fork, make sure they're all blended together, and then we'll move on to adding our meat. Okay, I'm going to be using ground chuck 80/20. You can use 85/15 if you like. You can also use sirloin. A lot of people like using sirloin. They think it's a little bit more moist, but I guarantee you guys, if you'll use this bread and milk mixture that I'm using here, you won't have that problem with your meat drying out. So you just get this in here, break it up with your fork, and then what we'll do, oh, it's the fun part, is get our hands down there and mix all this together. Now, as you know from my other videos, you don't want to overwork any kind of ground beef, because I guarantee you it will come out tough. So you just kind of mix this up, make sure it's all in there really good, and then we'll start forming our loaf, and then we'll make our glaze. That looks pretty good right there. Give me a second to wash my hands, and we'll get on to making the glaze. Let's move on to our glaze. This is so good. Man, I tell you what. What you want to do with your glaze, you're going to add some brown sugar, some plain old ketchup, we'll top our meatloaf with this once we get all of these ingredients mixed together. Now, you can use dry mustard if you like. I like using regular old yellow mustard. Not too much. It's acidic. Gives it a great tang. Man, I tell you what. Okay. I've got some granulated garlic, granulated onion, some paprika, and some red pepper flakes. Not too many red pepper flakes. You just give it just enough to give it a bite. And we'll mix this up, and we'll start topping our meatloaf with that. The next step before we start forming our meatloaf roll, you just want to take some crumpled up foil, because that helps whatever you're wrapping up cook more evenly than just putting flat foil in there, in my opinion. You also want to take some parchment paper, put on top of the foil, and start shingling strips of bacon like this. Just overlap just a little bit. Then you take your meatloaf roll and you just set that on top of that bacon, form it into a loaf or a roll, and then what you want to do is just wrap your bacon around it. Now you can secure the bacon with some toothpicks that you've soaked in water so that they don't burn when you put them in the oven. But basically, if you just take this parchment paper and just roll it over and just kind of assemble it just a little bit like that. Same thing on this side here. Just give it a little squeeze and then take your foil and just wrap it up. And I'll show you what that looks like once I get this wrapped up. Okay, we've got our glaze made. We've got our bacon wrapped meatloaf here. Man, look, that looks sinful, doesn't it? But man, it's going to be so good. Okay, just take some of your glaze, spread it across the top of your meatloaf, and just spread it out. Don't worry about it not getting on the sides, because I guarantee you the flavor of this bacon. I try to cover as much of this as possible. This glaze is also going to protect this bacon from overcooking with a barrier, I guess, if you will. Now, don't use all your sauce. Reserve some of it. What we'll do is we're going to set this in the oven. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up like this. I'm going to set this in the oven for about 30 minutes on a wire rack in a deep pan, just to catch any juices that come through. And then what we'll do is we'll take it back out, we'll remove the foil, set it back in there for another 30 minutes so that the bacon will crisp up. 30 minutes in the oven. Go ahead and peel back your parchment paper and your foil. And put this back in the oven for about 30 more minutes so that this bacon will crisp up. And right before it's finished, we'll take it out and we'll add another coat of glaze for the last 10 minutes. Our meatloaf has been in the oven for about an hour. We've got about 10 more minutes. We want to put the rest of our glaze on there. And what I like to do at the very end also is kind of drizzle it with Worcestershire sauce on top of that last layer of glaze. It really gives that meat a great flavor. We'll put this back in the oven for about 10 more minutes to let that glaze kind of toughen up a little bit, and we'll be ready to eat. Alright guys, it's been about an hour and 10 minutes. Our meatloaf is done. Now what we'll do is we'll set that down. We'll cover it with some aluminum foil, let it rest for about 10 minutes, and we'll cut into it. Alright guys, let's give this meatloaf, bacon wrapped meatloaf a try. Whew. Oh, look at that. I'm sorry, it's hot. I'm going to have it up, you know, serve it up with some mashed taters. Man, that's good. It is so moist. That bacon tastes so good. I'll tell you what, guys, if you've got about an hour and a half to do this, you know, with prep time and cooking time, you won't be sorry. It's real moist meatloaf. You won't be sorry. Who doesn't like bacon, right? Give this a try. Till next time, be nice to everybody. Bye-bye.